This is episode 139 of the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast. We're going to be talking about the problems of buying houses with tenants. But before we hop into that, you are listening to the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast. And my name is Chris Rickenbaugh. And if you haven't listened to this before, I am a house flipper and getting started in business. So I'm here on this podcast documenting my journey in real estate and business, and also talking a little bit about travel hacking and personal finance. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at leadway.wealth, where I post daily about what I'm doing, what I'm learning, my house flips, and pretty much anything that comes up in life. And if you're listening to this podcast, you can keep listening right where you are, or it is available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Podbean. Go give me a review. Go give me stuff to talk about, because I get bored sometimes on here. But let's hop into today's topic, or actually before that, getting ready to head down to the Better Life REI conference down in Austin, Texas. Super excited about that one. It's going to be the first big conference that I've ever been to. So what I'm planning on doing is bringing the microphone, bringing the headset, and pretty much documenting, or, giving a review of each day about, who spoke, what did I learn, what was it like, because I think a lot of other people haven't been to those big time conferences. And, that's something for me where, I don't know what the value is going to be out of it. It's going to be a lot of networking, a lot of talking. I'm doing just not the general admission. So I'm doing the next level up, the VIP. So, just to see how I have some access to some higher up people in the space. What are those conversations like? What are the things they're asking me, and what are they speaking about and seeing in real estate right now? So you'll be able to see and hear my review, whether I go day by day or just one big review of the Better Life REI conference. I'll still be dropping a podcast on Tuesday and then next Friday. So, other news, just got another flip under contract in a really solid part of Charlotte. So I'll be willing to give the breakdown on that as soon as we end up closing and given kind of any information, because it should be a little bit of a quicker one, hopefully with less surprises than what I've been getting. But so let's hop into this episode. It's going to be relatively quick, but the problems of buying houses with tenants. So this is something that I've done twice now, and, actually 3 times. So I bought 3 houses with tenants in them before. They're all on month-to-month leases. And if you've been listening to the podcast, you've heard the 5-month eviction story. So that one was definitely that was a process. So that was a little out of character, but it does expose some of the problems that you can have of buying the houses with tenants in them. So the big 1 and 2 here is it narrows your timeline on a flip. So if you're flipping the house and you buy it with tenants in it, make sure they're on a month-to-month lease, because this way, as soon as let me back up. So what it does, it narrows your timeline on the flip. So say it takes 2 months to get out because you have to give them a 30-day notice, and then they have, once you give them the 30-day notice, it's basically however much time they have left in their contract, and then they have that 30 days to be able to move before you start the actual eviction. So if they start the eviction process, who knows how long that they can take. They'll at least get another 2 weeks if you have to go through the eviction, and that's basically you serve them the notice, you take them to court, and then if you get it all in one, then that's 2 weeks, along with, taking them to court if they don't pay. So that's a whole other month. And now you're looking at about 3.5 months to be able to get them out of the house. And I may be a little bit off here, but this is just speaking from my experience. So it really narrows your timeline on a flip. If you're using hard money, normally that's about a 6-month time period on the loan. So what we had happen on ours, we bought the house, we gave them the 30-day notice, but I think we gave it to him in the end of January, and we didn't get him out till almost the end of March. So it took us so long to be able to get him out, 45 to 60 days. And that ate into our timeline so much to where now we're in about the last week of the flip. And, I had to call my lender and say, hey, man, like, we're not expecting to go over. We're pricing it right so that we can, offload it, because it takes 30 days for a normal buyer to be able to buy the property and go through all that loan crap. But, that gives us basically about 2 weeks to be able to, sell the house. So we need to be aggressive on trying to sell it rather than trying to get the right price and do any like special marketing. He's like, that's no problem on his side. But what I kept thinking about is, it took us 2 months to be able to get that person out. What would we be able to do with 2 more months? We would be way more comfortable. So, that's something you really got to think of. You got to have a quick and efficient process, but that quick and efficient process, if they use all of those days without the eviction, you're probably looking at about 45 to 60 days, and that can really, really hurt the timeline on the flip if you run into issues. So the next one is making sure you're quick and efficient with the eviction. So if you do have to carry out the evictions, I said you have to serve them the notice. That gives them a little bit of time. I think it's around 2 weeks when we did it. And then you take them to court. You got to have all your material ready to go, documents, statements, how much they owe you, what's this about. And then say they get served and say, hey, they are evicted. Then they get 10 days to be able to appeal. And then they get 7 days after that to be able to get their stuff out before the sheriff gets there. So that's 17 days. And then you're looking at about the 3.5 months total from when you originally evicted them. So, like I said, that just eats into your timeline so much to where it's so difficult. Unless you don't really have to worry about that. If you're not buying with hard money, it's not really a problem, but it is something to think about. And if you're a first-time flipper, it's not something to be super scared of. It's just something to make sure you have all the documentation of the month-to-month lease, the security deposits, and be able to quickly and efficiently get them out. So, the biggest thing, before we hop off is if you are buying houses with tenants in them, there's always the option to be able to pay them to leave. But most of the time, they just see that there's a new owner and they're assuming that their lease is going to go on as normal. So they're not really planning to leave until you serve them that notice or tell them, hey, I am not renewing your lease. And you're just hoping that they don't cause any problems for you, tear up any walls, leave a bunch of junk. So that just adds to your timeline, adds to the budget. So that could be a real problem as well. So it's just something to think about. It's not something to completely stay away from. There is different exit strategies, but make sure they're on a month-to-month lease. Something is documented that they are staying there and that they should be getting out right around the time you're buying the property so that you can quickly get those tenants out. So that's about all I got for you today. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you tune in next week for a review of the Better Life REI conference down in Austin, Texas. That's with Brandon Turner, my mentor, Cam Cathcart, so many more. Pace Morby will be there. A couple of locals from Charlotte like Stephanie Betters. So super excited for that one. And that's all I got on here. This is Chris Rickenbaugh signing off for the Leadway Wealth Builders Podcast.